Welcome to episode 22 of Coffee and Co-Read, your source for all things literary with Catherine
and Kristen, where we believe there is nothing better than a hot coffee and an awesome book. Join us for our virtual book club where we take one book a month and dive into all the drama, adventure, and romance we can find. Hi, Catherine.
Hey, Kristen.
So this is our last episode of Throne of Glass. It's week 5. So just a little hint, we are saving the title of our next book until the end of the episode. But just a little hint of what we're going to be reading next month. It is being adapted into a series, and it is tentatively being released on September 15th of this year. So, in honor of that, we'll say, we are going to discuss what books we would like to see made into either movies or TV shows, TV series. So, why don't you start? What books do you want to see in movie or TV form?
Yeah, so for me, like every time I finish a book, I'd love to see it as a movie or a series. Like I think that's just a common thing anyway, because like you're trying to picture it in your head and then you're like, I want this word for word on a screen so that I can watch it.
And it's true. And I think very few, if any, books to TV or movies are as satisfying as you want them to be. Like you literally want what you read on the page to be what you see on the screen. And obviously it, like, I understand they're different mediums, so it never works that way, but you just have the urge for it to be exactly that.
Exactly. Yeah. And I know like a lot of books are hard because they're in first person. And then how do you get in somebody's head in a movie? Because like I was watching something today. It's actually the first adaptation of the book that we're reading next month. They already did a movie version. So I was watching that. And there are scenes where like the main character just like talks to herself. And I get it's because the book is in first person and you need that. But it's also like, I didn't love it.
No. I might have to watch that now.
I know. I had to. But also, obviously, we're fans of Sarah J. Maas. So I think that we can both agree that we want to see any and all of her series as probably TV series for these ones is what I was thinking would be best.
My thing is that I feel like all books should be TV series. As much as I appreciate some of the movies that have come out, like I appreciate the Harry Potter movies. I appreciate,
Lord of the Rings
are the
best adaptations ever.
Yeah. I appreciate like Hunger Games and Divergent and all those like movies that were released. I appreciate those, but reading the books, there's just so much more detail in everything than that can be fit into a movie. So I just like, for me, I'm going to wish for everything to be a TV show.
Yeah, I get that. There's a few that I can think of that I'm like, that could be a good movie, but like all in all, I just want every single scene on the screen. So it would have to be a short book to be a movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Sarah J. Maas, apparently A Court of Thorns and Roses is already in the works as a series. I'm super interested in how it will turn out. It's being adapted apparently by the same person who adapted Outlander. And Sarah J. Maas seems like super involved in the whole process. So you'd think that it would be pretty close to the source material at the very least.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think they're still in like the writing maybe stage. Like I haven't heard anything about cast or anything.
Yeah. So she posted in March that she was working on the pilot.
Oh, really?
So yeah, she posted it on her Instagram, I think.
Oh, okay.
Is it on her Instagram or her Twitter? Instagram.
Yeah.
So she wrote it on her Instagram that that she was writing the pilot with Ron Moore,
Mm.
who is the creator of Outlander. So, so that was March. So, I mean, hypothetically, they could have the script done by now.
Yeah.
And maybe trying to, I don't know,
Cast?
get stuff going now. I don't know. I have
Yeah.
no idea how
Long stuff
creating
takes.
I have no idea how creating TV shows work. So I don't know what their next step would be, but
Yeah. I'm sure it's one of those ones that we'll definitely hear about as soon as they cast anybody or anything like that. So
yeah, for sure.
definitely interested to see how it's going to look.
I'm on one hand super excited because if you guys do not know, ACOTAR, A Court of Thorns and Roses is my favorite series of Sarah J. Maas. I'm excited to see it on TV, but I'm also really nervous to see it on TV as well because, like, if it's not everything you want and, expectations are high, it's my absolute favorite book series. I have a huge tattoo for it on my leg. So I'm worried that it's not going to live up to as awesome as I think it is of a book. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course. It's also a series that is still ongoing and being written, kind of like Harry Potter was when they adapted it. So I do kind of wonder, like, if she's going to add in extra Easter eggs into the show that will tell us a bit more about what's going to happen in future books. It would definitely be awesome-ish.
Yeah.
It definitely make you want to rewatch it a few times after she finishes the series, for sure.
For sure, yeah.
So obviously my favorite series by Sarah J. Maas is this one, Throne of Glass. I want a Throne of Glass series so badly. It would just be so epic. And there are just so many scenes that I do want to see out of all of these books. I actually think it could be a good animated series. It is a lot more YA than A Court of Thorns and Roses. And like, I read it originally for the YA, not for any of the smut per se. Not that I don't enjoy the smut, because I do, but
there's not very much of it in this series.
No, exactly. But yeah, I do really want to see that one adapted at some point. I think it would be good.
Yeah, I agree with you that I think this one would make an awesome animated series because I just think that her sort of badassery as an assassin would just translate really well into like an animated content. Sort of like She-Ra, the new She-Ra series that came out on Netflix.
Yeah.
Like that's sort of what I imagine.
Yeah. I just think it's very epic.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of like epic scenes that I think it would be hard to do them well realistically.
Yeah.
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 Her other series, Crescent City, there's just so much going on in the series that I do think it would definitely be interesting to see it on screen as well. But it is like at the bottom of my list of the books that I'd want to see.
But it's also, both of us have now at this point read Crescent City #2, A House of Sky and Breath.
Are we going to get into that spoiler?
We're not getting into the spoiler. However, I do think that adapting, there is a spoiler at the end of that book, a huge one, like a life-altering one.
So if you haven't finished it, maybe you should just skip ahead a little bit and we'll talk about it for a second. Because I was thinking that as well.
It's just, I just think it would be very hard to tie, like, if it would just be very hard to tie this spoiler in. I'm not going to say it. Okay. I just think it would be hard to tie the spoiler into a series.
Okay. Now I'm done with it.
Okay.
So I also really want to see Carry On. I think as a movie, I think Carry On would be a good movie. The first book.
I agree with you. It's short enough, I think.
Yeah, I don't even know if I'd want all three of them as a movies. Like I didn't dislike either of the other ones. Like if the second one had been the end, I would have been fine with that as well. I know a lot of people were like, but it's not happily ever after. And I was like, well, that's trauma. So like I was kind of okay with it.
Yeah.
But
You're okay with unhappy endings.
I
I am
am.
not.
I
I'm
know.
totally
I know. But I do think Carry On would translate very well to a movie, and it's such Harry Potter vibes that I think a lot of people would like enjoy it like they did Harry Potter.
Yeah.
And like it would be good as gay representation on
Hmm.
screen as well. And I just love Simon Snow. Poor little baby.
See, I'd rather Baz.
I yeah,
If I had to
Baz
pick
is more
one
my
of
type.
them, if I had to pick one of them to be my best friend, we're not talking types here just because they have each
Well,
other.
yes.
I would totally pick Baz as a best friend over Simon
Mm.
Snow.
Neither one of them are very good friends, though, if you actually think about
No,
it.
no, they're not.
Like, all of Baz's friends are basically minions, and Simon is like scatterbrained and just,
He's just a bit whiny, isn't he?
well,
I think he is.
this is Harry Potter Book 5
It's true.
translated to.
It's true, yeah.
uh, anyway, another book slash series, even though I haven't read the whole series, that I'd love to see as a movie or a TV series. I think it could be a good movie though, because it's like very action packed. It would have to have like some CGI, and there'd be like some of those scenes would just be really amazing to see. But Gideon the Ninth by Tasman Muir, um, it's I've talked about it before, but it's basically space and necromancers and lesbian, and it's just like very action packed. There's no smut at all in it. But anyway, I loved that book. It just was hard to follow a few things because of like the names and then all the different places in the world building. So I think that a movie or show would actually help with that, because you'd be able to like, okay, instead of remembering this strange name, I can just look at this person's face.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Kristen? What are you hoping for?
So I'm gonna go a bit old school. Um, so I would really like there to be an updated Sense and Sensibility movie. So if you've been listening, you probably have heard us talk about Pride and Prejudice a lot. We're both big Jane Austen fans.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I just Sense and Sensibility is like one of those, like, it's a sleeper to me. Like, it's not one that everybody automatically thinks of.
Mm-hmm.
Um it's not like the first one that people tried to make
Yeah.
as like a movie or a series. Everybody goes to Pride and Prejudice. I think Emma
And
was
Emma.
released, has
Yeah.
been released several times. Uh, and Persuasion too. I feel like everybody sort of, that's like another one that's coming out soon. But I feel like Sense and Sensibility has sort of been forgotten about maybe a little bit.
Mm.
Like, I don't actually know. And please, people, like, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think there's been a Sense and Sensibility released since Emma Thompson and Kate Winslet did it, like back in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think it could use an update. I just think it'd be
Yeah.
nice. And maybe even nice if they did it similar, because it's another like longish book.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like maybe if they did a BBC
Oh yeah.
adaptation of it, like a series adaptation of it, the same way they did Pride and Prejudice in 1995. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know. I think that'd be an interesting, it's one I'd like to see.
Yeah. Although, speaking of good adaptations, the 2005 Pride and Prejudice was everything
I
I
know.
needed.
I know. It's
So
amazing. And whoever did the cinematography and the
soundtrack.
soundtrack are like gods. They are completely amazing. If you have not watched it, please watch it. It is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I would also actually really like to see the From Blood and Ash as a TV series. I know in our last sort of episode, I sort of maybe harshed on it a little bit, on the writing and it being a little bit repetitive and a bit hard to follow. But I feel like a good screenwriter and a good director could really like push that series in the right direction.
Because the relationship, I think you even said it last week, like the characters in the relationship are good. It
Yeah.
just
And the idea is great too.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think a good screenwriter and a good director could see into that series and could sort of pull what they need to pull out of it and make an awesome series out of it.
Mhm.
Another one. So this one is an old one. It's like 20 years old. It's this book called Aragon that came out in like the early 2000s by some kid. He was like 16 at the time. Christopher Paolini. Um, it was an awesome series. Like the series itself was fantastic, but they tried to turn it into a movie series,
Mhm.
but like the books are just so long. Like there's like, I think the first book is 700 pages. I think the second book is like nearly 1,000 pages. It's
Mhm.
just too long for a movie.
Yeah.
Like
And this was before they really did series of books too.
that's
So
true. Yeah. No, you're right. It is when they mostly did movies. It was coming out around the same time as like Lord of the Rings, so I feel like they
Mhm.
tried to do something like that, but uh yeah, like the movie was just not good. They
I
had
didn't
to,
mind it.
but
But I hadn't read the books,
yeah,
so I read the books after the movie. It was another one of those situations. I like to get in, and then I
yeah,
just like the book for nostalgia. I mean, I like the movie for nostalgia reasons because it got
yeah,
me into the series.
yeah. Anyway, I didn't like it. I liked the actors, and I think
Mm,
they tried hard and they did a good job trying. They just cut too much out for it to make sense to me
yeah,
after I had read the book and knew everything that was happening.
for sure.
And then another one, it's a series that is, I think, I don't know how well known it is. It's called Vampire Girl series. It's by Karpov Kinraid. They're a married couple.
Okay.
Um, I read it like ages ago. I just found it on Kindle Books, and it's like I don't even know how many books are in the series now. It might be 5 or 6, and then I think there's also some spin-offs.
Oh, okay.
Um, but it's actually like really good and like twisty and not
Mm,
at all what you would expect. Like the idea, I'm actually just gonna say it's the premise is this girl is just living her life, and all of a sudden some guy comes up to her and says, you are like fated, like destined, and like your mother like essentially sold your soul or whatever to us. We're the 7 deadly sins and you have to come live in hell and marry one of us. So initially you think, oh, that's going to be it, but then it turns out they're also vampires.
okay.
It's anyway, it sounds like such a weird premise, but then when you actually get into it, like it gets very like it gets really good.
Mm,
Anyway,
makes sense.
I think that would also be a really good one as a series. If anybody has read it, hit us up because I'd love somebody. I'd love to know if anybody else has read the series.
I'm gonna have to look it up.
Yeah, it's really good. Um so yeah, so those are all the ones that I would like to see. And of course there's a bajillion more, but those are like all the ones I could think of right now.
Yeah. Basically, every book we finish, we're like, please make
Yes.
this into a series or movie.
Yeah, essentially.
So stick around to the end to figure out what book we'll be reading next month and what book is going to be a series in September.
Yeah, and just a heads up, we are not a spoiler free zone and things might get a little saucy.
So this week is our last week of Throne of Glass. We're doing chapters 43 right to the end of the book. And last week, I guess we ended with Celaena being attacked by a Ridderak, and it was controlled and summoned by Cain, which was a huge surprise to Celaena, but maybe shouldn't have been in retrospect. Um,
Yeah,
he'd
he
been
was
used
only he was only just like sneaking around praying to weird statues, like get he was just
doubling in size every week.
yeah.
Like, yeah. So he'd been using the Ridderak to attack the other champions and absorb their powers, hence why he's so freaking strong.
Powers just being their talents, right?
Yes, well, yeah, absorb their strength, I guess is better way to say it. Yeah, Celaena managed to kill the Ridderak, but she got a bite in the process. Luckily, Nehemia finds her before she dies and helps her with her wounds. And Celaena kind of passes out, I guess, while she's being healed. So this week we start with her waking up, and she's in bed and in a nightgown, and she just doesn't remember how she got there. She looks at her hand, and it's basically just a scar now where the Ridderak had bitten her. So, like, you'd think that would take months to heal, you'd assume.
Yeah.
So Nehemia is sitting in the room and wants to know what the fuck happened, like how she got the bite mark. Like, she, I guess, doesn't know how Celaena got back to her room because she had passed out in her room, and it seemed like Nehemia might have been outside for a while waiting to be let in. Is kind of what I thought, but I guess Celaena asks Nehemia how long it's been, but it's only been 3 hours since she was bitten, so clearly Nehemia works fast. Celaena does start to explain, and she actually tells Nehemia a lot more than I would have expected in this moment. I get that she's like super grateful that she healed her and all that, but like I didn't realize we were going to divulge every secret we know of to Nehemia. But she tells her that she isn't Lillian and that she's an assassin. Nehemia has heard of her and knew she was supposed to be in Dovir. So she kind of puts it together because she's like, oh, that's why you know Yilwe, the language. So Nehemia's hurt that Celaena didn't trust her enough to tell her all of this before now. And Celaena tells her that she does trust her. And like, as a reader, I'm like, nah, girl, you 100% thought that she was controlling the monster until about 5 seconds ago when you saw Cain chanting.
It's true. But also, though, like, I find that a bit hypocritical because Nehemia has her own secrets.
Exactly.
So, like, it bothers me that she's like, oh, you didn't trust me enough to tell me. And it's like, you didn't trust her either. You didn't tell her shit.
You didn't tell her that you could speak the common tongue. You had her teaching you lessons and pretending to progress. Like, that's, yeah, there's a lot that Nehemia is being very entitled here. But I guess she also grew up a princess, so I don't know.
It's always the excuse.
Right. Celaena actually tells her about the competition. And she does get a bit defensive over the fact that she'll, like, if she wins, she will have to work for the king. And so she does tell Nehemia that she doesn't like the idea, obviously, of working for the king. She says the king took everything away from her, but she doesn't really have a choice. Like, it's this or Endovir. And if she's in Endovir, she's dead, basically. Like, she can't survive much longer there.
Yep.
Nehemia sits with Celaena, and she kind of honors her, is how Celaena puts it, with a name. And it's Alentia, which means spirit that could not be broken. And Nehemia draws a mark on her forehead, and she says it's a name to use when others get too heavy. It's just an interesting
way to phrase it.
Yeah, an interesting thing. And like, yes, as Celaena, she 100% has like a lot of baggage on that name. So I do get why she might need another name.
Yes.
Even though she does have another name of Lillian, it's like, how many names does one girl need?
She needs more.
Yes. Chaol and Celaena are walking together the next morning, and Chaol's still kind of jealous about the ball. He does tell her that she doesn't need to be guarded anymore, and that he knows she isn't going anywhere, including back to Endovir. which kind of shows a bit of his confidence in her, I guess. But it's also clear that he's like, he asks her if she's upset about anything. And then he's like, did you have a fight with Dorian? She's like, no, I got fucking attacked by a Ridderak last night. But she can't tell him that because she doesn't want to get into the whole like passageway in her room and Kane. And so after their practice, Chaol and Celaena turn a corner. They're just chatting and walking back to her room, and they turn a corner and run into the king. And the king looks at her, and she feels like he knows something happened in the castle last night involving her, which seems like, I don't know if she's just projecting or like, how would you know?
Yeah.
So we switch over to Chaol's point of view, and he's in his room and he's reading the king's report. And the king came back from his excursion alone, even though he left with multiple people, one would assume an army of sorts.
Mm-hmm.
But in his report, he says that they all died because...
Convenient.
Right? Because apparently rebels poisoned the food source. And Chaol kind of doesn't really think that that's the whole truth, but he doesn't know what he's supposed to do about it. Because, like, are you gonna go question the king?
Well, that's not in his job description.
Exactly. He also thinks about Celaena and how she looked like a wounded animal in front of the king. He notes that, like, she's getting so much stronger, and he wonders if this is how she was kind of before she went to Endovir, because he's starting to have trouble keeping up with her.
Good.
And right? That's what we're waiting for. He also mentions that she goes to a deep place inside of herself when she duels, which is just an interesting tidbit, I guess. That shows he's more observant than you'd think, but clearly not observant enough, one would say. We jump back to Celaena, and her and Nox are sparring. And there are only 5 champions left. So there's going to be a test the next day to get rid of the 5th wheel. Nox, who is super observant, notices the scars on her hand and that they're new, which, like, Chaol didn't notice them at all. And Dorian, I don't know if he's really been close enough to notice them, but you can clearly tell that Nox is a very intelligent character, especially because he, like, basically puts 2 and 2 together that the champions were killed by an animal and she was bitten by one. So he kind of asks her for an explanation. Celaena refuses to tell him, mostly because she's afraid she'll seem crazy. But she does tell him that if she had a choice, she would run. She'd leave the castle before the duel. And he's kind of confused by that because he's like, you're just a jewel thief. Wouldn't, like, your father just take you home if you left? And she's like, I'm not though. And he is, again, showing his intelligence here because he basically works out who she is with minimal questions to her. And I just thought it was, like, pretty impressive. He's just like, would I have heard about you? And she's like, yep. And he's like, and you came from near Endovir? And she's like, yep. And he's like, oh shit. He, like, just puts it together like that. You're like, man, if everyone was that smart, I don't know what this book would be.
I know, it's not, I just don't think it's very hard to figure it out.
No.
And, like, I love Nox.
Agreed. Yeah.
He's just, yeah. But I also feel like he's a thief, so, like, sort of, he has to be a bit, like, he has
charismatic.
to be, yeah, but also, like, he has to be observant. He sort of has to notice all the little details and be smart enough to figure out how to use them. So, like,
yeah. But you'd think Chaol, as captain of the guard, would notice a new scar on her hand. Like, he never notices it, I don't think.
Yeah, but I also feel like for all the training he has, and we've discussed this before, he's lived a relatively cushy life and a cushy job. Like, yeah, he's captain of the royal guard, but what has he actually done? Like, this whole book, we have not seen, like, we've seen him investigating a murder, but before that, like, what has he done work-wise that has been very impressive? Like, he literally just deals with the guard rotations in the palace. Like,
Yeah.
it's not like he's, I don't know. I just feel like he's not as sharp as Knox or Celaena because he hasn't had to be.
Yeah. And Knox, I think, is like older anyway. Like I would assume he's in his later 20s
Yeah.
is kind of the feeling I get. I'm not sure if we ever find out. Um, he's shocked that she's so young, which also makes me think he's probably in his later 20s, but
Well, I
that's also
guess,
just a theme too.
yeah, when we say that, he's shocked that that Adderlin's assassin is so young. Celaena, like, I guess no one ever knew what Celaena looked like or how old she was or anything like that. Just that she's this amazing assassin. So
Yeah.
he's surprised that she's only, what, 18?
Yeah, exactly. Uh, so Celaena does tell him that she did get the scar from a creature and she thinks that he should run while he still can. And I kind of thought surprisingly that Knox did take her advice and he literally slips out of the castle that night. And I just like that is very trusting for somebody that you don't really know, but I do like him a lot. So
Yeah.
hopefully we see him again in the future.
And I agree with you. Like, the fact that he trusts her enough to listen to her and leave instead of thinking that it was just like, how does he know
Getting rid.
she wasn't just like getting rid of a fourth, like another champion? Like, that is a possibility, but he didn't think that. He literally just, he believed her.
Yeah. Yeah. So we jump over to Caltain's point of view now, and she is walking to meet the Duke for supper. And she said that she smoked a bunch of opium beforehand because of an awful headache. And she passes by Kane in the hallway and she sees things flying around his head. Like he's completely covered in darkness and there are just winged beasts flying around him, I guess. And she's like, fuck, this opium must be bad. And like as soon as
She got some bad drugs.
yeah, basically. But as soon as she passes by him, she basically forgets that she ever saw it,
Yeah.
which I think that part is probably the drug induced.
Yeah.
Um, Celaena and Dorian are playing chess, and she's still very conflicted over her feelings for him. But she's also very happy that he's there because she assumes that Kane would never attack her with the prince in the room, which I think
I
is a pretty good
mean,
assumption.
really, because I don't know. I I don't.
Well, I don't know. I just have to assume that like Kane is either working on his own or working with Parrington's help, and killing the prince would not be
Yeah, I
ideal.
guess.
Or
I
letting
guess.
the prince know that he's the one doing it.
Yeah, it makes sense.
But yeah. So Celaena's like very terrified of Kane at this moment. The marks also showed up under her bed again, and she's worried that it's Kane trying to do something to her. And Dorian kind of tries to like get her to tell him what's wrong, and because she's visibly shaken, and she is worried that like if he asks her again, she'll actually tell him.
Mm-hmm.
So she kisses him to distract him.
Woo!
She does say a bit later, I guess, after a bit of a makeout sesh, that she cares about Dorian too much to ask him to stay the night in case the Ridderak actually does come in and attack.
Mm-hmm.
But she has a dream that night of a demon chasing her in the woods, and she's small in the dream, and she can't make it to the bridge. So it's just a little tidbit I'm going to throw in there.
When you say small, do you mean like a child or do you mean miniature?
Well, it could be either, but I took it as a child,
Ah,
but only because of what I know.
okay.
But I think it did. It was just like she was so small, so it could maybe she was having a dream where she was just a mini,
Shrunk
like
down.
shrunk down. Like what is that, Thumbelina?
Oh, yeah.
Maybe that's what it was.
Could be.
the next morning, the test is canceled because Nox left. So there's only 4 of them left now. And the final duel will be Celaena, Grave, Cain, and Renault. We can jump to Dorian's point of view. There's a bit of jumping around in this part, but we go to Dorian now, and he's kind of hunting to get his mind off of Celaena because he is falling hard. She is on his mind constantly, but he doesn't know how she feels, and he knows she wanted to kiss him last night, but he doesn't know if she has deeper feelings. But he also can't imagine being with anyone else now.
God.
I agree.
He's being such a, like, you know how, like, you go on one date with someone and it's like maybe it's your first date ever and you're like, oh my God, I love them so much.
Yeah.
And then this other person that you went on the date with, they've been on like a few dates. They've had a few relationships. So they are well aware that you don't love someone after the first date.
Yeah.
I feel like he's being that. He's being very like, oh my God, we kissed like twice. I love her so much.
Which, like, doesn't make sense with his character. And I honestly think that this is because, like, his character was in love with someone before and she was stolen by someone else. He sleeps around. Like, he's very openly
he's supposed to be
promiscuous.
A bit of a man whore.
Yeah. So I do think that this is because Sarah J. Maas wrote it when she was 16. I think that in this book, when she was writing it, I think that she had planned them to be together in the end.
Maybe. And maybe they still will.
Exactly. So, but I think that's why he's acting like that, is because Sarah J. Maas was like, this is end game, kind of.
Yeah, could be.
But also, there's a bajillion more books and many things happen.
Yes.
So we jump back to Celaena now, and she is also thinking, but not about Dorian, which completely makes sense because she's wondering about the duel. She knows she's faster than Cain, even if he's stronger, but she kind of wonders if it would be better to, like, die during the duel than it would be to lose and have to go back to Endovier. So, like, it does make sense to die in the duel than to do that. And then she's like, but even if she wins, then she's the king's champion, and she has no choices. So wouldn't it just be best for her to kind of die with some type of honor in the duel than for either of those things to happen? So it's like very sad point of view, I'll say.
Yeah, and she has a point too, right? Like, you know, I don't know, just, you know, she's trying to come up with a opportunity for her to die at her own
will. It's kind of like, right? It's kind of like Sven when he's the one that ran to the door and then got shot down by the guards during one of their training sessions. So it's like he didn't want to go back where he was from. He knew he wasn't going to win and he wanted to die on his own terms.
Yeah. So this is what I think for her too.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. But it is sad because, like, it's win or lose, but she's almost like winning is almost just as bad. So.
Yeah.
She does say that when she worked under Arabin, the king of assassins, she had a choice in who she killed. She refused to kill children, and she wouldn't kill anyone from Terrasen, which is like her home country.
But, like, do you think there are a lot of hits out on children? Like, that just seems like, I get why, but, like, I can't imagine somebody being like, hey, that 5-year-old over there, they've been coming over on my side and picking my flowers.
I feel like it would be like a warning to the parents or something. It'd be like, I don't know.
I guess.
But, and that's what she's like, well, I guess the king would put a hit out on children if there's, like, Nehemia, I think, has a younger brother. So I can see him being like, he's a threat.
Yeah, that's true.
So obviously, if she works for the king, she will not have a choice in who she kills. She basically just has to kill whoever he says. she's obviously just kind of sitting here thinking about all this, but she can't kind of believe how far she's come from the slave she was in Endovir and how much she could lose tomorrow. And it's not even just her life, but like kind of the happiness that she's found in the castle with obviously Dorian and Chaol. So
yeah.
We do another jump of point of view back to Celaena. And she kind of uses Parrington as like a human shield to dump a vial of poison into Celaena's cup. And so there's 2 cups, and they're gonna have 2 duels. Then the winner of those duels are gonna drink out of these cups.
And duel each other.
And then duel each other after that. So my thing is, what if Celaena's kicked out in the first round and she doesn't even drink out of one of these cups?
Yeah, I feel like though they know for 100%. Like they can tell who's the best.
Yeah,
like, you know what I mean?
I do, but I'm also like, can you imagine what the story would have been like if someone else ended up drugged?
Maybe, but even at the same time, if it's somebody else, like I feel like the point is for Kane to win. So even if Celaena doesn't get there, if it is someone else, then it doesn't really matter. They still want to poison whoever that person is. Celaena might not get the same satisfaction because she's out for Celena's like blood.
Yeah.
But other than that, I don't think it really matters who it is.
No. So she does mention that it's like just enough poison to weaken and disorient her, but like not enough to actually kill her. So we go back to Celaena's now point of view, and she, I guess, comes out and she notices Celaena smiling at her, and Celaena is near the king and the duke, and she doesn't really understand why until Celaena looks over at Kane, and Kane is huge, and Celaena's kind of there wondering how much stronger he'd be if she had like died as well at the Ridderak's hand. So if he had her strength as well, like, would it be noticeable?
Yeah, he'd be unstoppable.
Well, yeah. So like, she's clearly very strong. So I don't know what that would do to his character. Cause like, was there like 7, 8 people died or something? Like,
yeah.
Strength of 9 men in one person's body is wild.
He's beefed.
Exactly. She kind of looks up in the stands and notices 2 lords who kind of look at her with fear. And this part's a bit funny because she says that she was hired by both of them to kill the same person, and she took money from each of them. Which I'm like, good for her. If 2 people want to hire you for the same job, get both that money.
Yeah, why not?
Nehemia also shows up at the duel before it starts, and she has her staff to show solidarity.
I don't understand. So does this mean all the lies are out the window? Like, like, you know, she's been Lady Lillian this whole time, and like they haven't been allowed to say anything about the duel. They haven't been allowed to tell anybody why they're really there. So like, is that all out the window now? Like everybody's just coming to see it and be like, oh, that's why she's here. Like, and like, is her real identity out in the open now?
Well, yeah, because the only 2 people that we know, like Celaena knows who she is, obviously. Yes. And Nehemia does because she told Nehemia. But if Nehemia wasn't told by Celaena, would she have gone to the duel, for one? And if she did go to the duel, would she have been like, what the fuck is going on? You're just a lady in this court. Like, yes. Exact same thing. I don't understand. It's like, it seems wild that she's allowed to go. Yeah. Like, wouldn't you not want Nehemia to know who the king's champion is?
But also, it seems like, why are they putting off this big old spectacle for this secret duel? Like, you'd think you would want it to be as hush-hush as humanly possible.
Well, exactly. You don't want everybody to know who your champion is. You want it to be someone who can blend in. Not that I think Kane ever could, but...
And I think they're a bit stupid for thinking that Kane, like, what do they think he's going to do? How's he going to get into a castle and assassinate?
He can't even fit through the door. Yeah. Yeah. So for some reason, Nehemia's there because I guess plot.
Because plot line.
Exactly. So the champions kind of line up for the king's speech, and he like puts out the rules. You have to put your opponent into a position of sure death, but no further. So nobody should be dying here.
Right.
He then tells them who's fighting. And out of the 4 champions, the only one he like calls by name is Cain. So he's like basically calls all the other ones by their sponsor's name. So Celaena is Dorian's champion, and she is fighting Grave, and Cain is fighting Renault. And Cain and Renault are the first of the 2 groups to duel. So Celaena and Chaol are watching, and she's kind of like a bit put out that she's going second, but Chaol kind of assures her that she's going to have enough time to rest between her battle and the final. And right. But he also notices that Cain doesn't guard his right side, which like I understand in theory, but I can't imagine what it looks like.
No.
Like it's one of those things that you read and you're like, oh yeah, I get what that means.
Yeah,
and then you're like, you try to picture it and you're like,
yeah,
I would never notice that. Well, like for sure.
You almost want to be like, oh, he doesn't guard his right side. What an idiot. Like he's such a moron.
Exactly. But it's doesn't like hasn't he been practicing? Why did no one tell him this?
I have no idea how to do that.
Yeah. Chaol's also trying to like coach her on how to keep calm. Like I just found that so condescending for somebody who's clearly been in this situation way more than he has. Like I'm like, she knows what she's doing. Maybe you need to calm down. Cain breaks Renault's nose and gets a sword pointed to his chest within 3 minutes.
We all knew this was happening. I'm surprised he lasted 3 minutes.
Exactly, right? Celaena and Grave are set to duel, and Chaol offers her his sword, which I think he's likely not allowed to do. Like, he's the captain of the guard, and the sword belongs to, like, that position. I feel like that is I don't know, he probably should have just got her a different sword. I get why he's doing it, but I'm like, the king would have fucking killed him if she actually took it, I feel like. But we never have to get into that.
I don't know, though. I think if she wins these duels and becomes the king's champion, I don't think he would have an issue with her using one of, like, an Adderlenian sword to do it, right? He'd be like, yes, it just proves that you were meant to be my champion, as a sort of thing.
I know, but I feel like Chaol's sword is different. It's like, I feel like it's specifically for that role. So I don't know. I don't know if that's true. That's just how
I thought it was his sword.
Oh, well, if it's his, then completely makes sense. But it doesn't really matter anyway, because, first, she does mention looking into Chaol's eyes and feeling a golden chain tying them together, which is kind of interesting if you've read other Sarah J. Maas books, because, like, chain tying people together usually means something. So, just pointing that out. Would you
care to elaborate on that?
Well, in her other books, like, if there's a chain between 2 people, it's usually a mating bond.
Yeah.
So it's just an interesting...
Yeah, it's an interesting way to describe it.
Exactly. But it's also her first book, and she was 16. Nehemia also offers her a weapon, her iron-tipped staff. And she says to Celaena, let it be with an Eelway weapon that you take them down, which is definitely a political statement and almost a slap in the face to the king, I think. But she kind of realizes that, like, as the king's champion, she might find ways to save lives and undermine the king's authority. And that's kind of what Elena asked her to do. So she's like, even though the sword is smarter, and obviously she felt something for Chaol when he offered it, she does take Nehemia's staff, and it's more a stand against the king than, like, what would make sense in the duel.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like she is a rebel at heart.
Yes.
So she's all, and like, she's never going to do what is smarter. She's always going to do what is more meaningful.
And what is right in her eyes.
Yeah.
Because she very much has a right and wrong, similar to Chaol. It's just that her life went into a completely different direction than his, so she ended up an assassin with a moral compass that is a bit more wonky than maybe a normal one.
Yeah.
But she definitely still has it. Celaena thanks Chaol for making her freedom mean something, which I kind of thought was interesting, because A, she isn't really free yet, and B, what did he do? Like, he was very mean to her.
Yeah.
I'm like, I think I missed something here in this book, because I don't know.
But like, I guess they train together all the time, so maybe it's like the fact that he like, I don't know, maybe they got closer than we realized during all their training sessions.
Well, they had to have, or she wouldn't be as emotional as she is about it all. But I just thought it was interesting, because I did think that her relationship with Dorian was more prominent in this book than this moment suggests.
Yeah.
But obviously she can't talk to Dorian right now either, because he's up there with the king. It reminds me of Gallivant, where the king's very, like, in I think the third season, where Magdalena and Garrett are like way up high getting painted by the painter during the battle.
Oh, yeah.
Like, nowhere near it. Can't be near the battle. That's...
Yeah.
Anyway.
Guys, if no one has watched Gallivant yet on TV, I think it's on Netflix.
Yes.
You need to, because it is phenomenal.
It is so good. And you can literally watch the first season in one night. Like,
yeah.
I rewatch it all the time.
And it's so freaking catchy.
Yes. So good. Anyway, back to the duel. The king starts Celaena and Graves' duel. And Celaena bloodies his nose, and that obviously pisses him off. And clearly, he's the one who needed Chaol's pep talk. Like, if he had kept calm, I think this fight may have gone differently, because he's pissed and he charges at her, and she just sweeps his legs out and then angles her staff at his throat.
Sweep the leg, Johnny. Sweep the leg. I don't think it would go differently. Like, not that I think it might have lasted longer if he stayed calm, but I don't think it would have gone differently.
I don't think that he would have won by any means, but I do think that he could have lasted a bit longer if he wasn't. But then he wouldn't be who he is.
That's what she said.
You calm the fuck down and last a bit longer. Good.
I love a good, like, that's what she said joke.
Double entendre.
Yeah.
So Celaena leans down and whispers in his ear, and dramatically she tells him who she really is, and then she drops her handkerchief on his chest and says he can keep it for his bloody nose.
All I could think of is like her whispering into his ear, "I'm Celaena Sardothian, bitch." Like,
I think that's how she did it. Yeah, that's perfect. I think that's exactly how she did
it. She's very dramatic. She loves a good bit of drama.
Very true. The fight only lasted 2 minutes, and she does mention that she's hardly winded, which is ideal.
It took her like two moves.
Yeah, exactly. So the king orders the wine for the champion, and Celaena does like a pretty little prayer after handing them to Cain and Celaena. And the king smiles at Celaena as she drinks hers in full. And like,
terrible idea.
I think that would be my first like warning that maybe something is going on. Like, why is the king smiling at her while she's drinking it down? Like,
but also, did she not do a test on poisons like 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, but this is the one that she missed in the wine and had to look over at Pelior's
Pellaria,
to get the actual answer. So it's like,
I
fine.
guess.
Yeah.
Fine, yeah.
He wasn't there to smell them for her. Uh, the king starts the duel immediately, obviously, as we knew he would, because she asked about rest before. So clearly, this is what was going to happen from the beginning. As the battle begins, Celaena's vision is blurry and she's kind of nauseous and she's a bit confused about it, obviously. Cain is obviously not, though, because he charges at her. She realizes that she's like not well and decides she needs to take him out quickly. But Cain is constantly one step ahead of her. Like every move she makes, he's there already. Cain asks her if she's not feeling well, and she almost takes him down while he's taunting her. She pushes him down, but like as she's about to put her staff in place, her like body fails her, like her arm just kind of goes slack or something, I think it was. She hears Keltane laugh and realizes that there was bloodbane in the wine. And I just am like, why would she laugh during a duel? It just poor timing. I do get that like Celaena kind of needed it to like realize that that's what happened, but it's just odd to laugh during a duel, I think. Celaena in her head does say that the bloodbane causes hallucinations and disorientation and at worst death, but if it was lethal, she would already be dead by now. So she's like, I know I'm going to have some hallucinations soon.
Yeah.
She also thinks she needs to end it before before the hallucinations start, since they're going to be powerful. She says that seers used to use bloodbane to speak with spirits in other worlds, which is interesting.
Ooh.
What does that mean?
I don't know.
Cain dislocates her shoulder and then throws her so hard she relocates it, which is just disgusting.
But also convenient. Like, at least she doesn't have to go around with, like, a shoulder hanging out of the socket.
Yes, but fuck, that had to hurt.
I don't know. I've never dislocated anything.
Me neither.
Oh, okay.
He also broke her staff, so she now has, like, 2 pieces of staff, and you're like, this is why you needed a sword.
But she could also, like, use it as, like,
Nunchucks. So we jump over to Dorian's point of view for a second, and he's watching, and he doesn't really understand what's happening, other than that something is clearly wrong with Celaena, which is fair. Like, how would he actually know what happened? He does want to stop the fight and ask that they do it again tomorrow when she's well, but he knows that he can't.
Well, I think it was his feeling was that, like, it would make Celaena seem weak.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, he could disqualify her, like...
Yeah.
Right? I think that's what he said. He didn't want to because he was worried that his dad would be like, oh, well, if she can't do the duel today, then she's not well, then I guess she forfeits. And
exactly.
So I think...
Which 100% is what he would do.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think Dorian could have done anything else here.
No. The king has it rigged in his favor, 1,000,000%.
Yeah. We jump over to Chaol's point of view, and he's obviously also confused about what's happening. But he hears Cain ask Celaena what her father would think of her. He also asks what it was like when she woke up between her parents covered in blood. And he tells her that her mother was a pretty young thing.
Ugh.
Which is just disgusting.
It's like... Sure, I'm just going to taunt this drugged up person that I'm dueling with the murder of their parents.
Yeah. And, like, clearly she does not want to hear this because it kind of pisses her off enough for her to get over some of her pain and attack him again. Cain kicks Celaena in the ribs and she tumbles over herself until she hits the clock tower with her head, which sounds awful, obviously.
Yeah.
But also, confuses me because they're supposed to be fighting in a ring, and if you leave the ring, you're disqualified.
Right.
Because there's many times that they talk about if you go over the line, you're disqualified. Why did they put it with the clock tower in there?
I don't know. I feel like the clock tower is on the edge.
Which still, you'd think that you'd want to be able to push her out of the ring on all sides. It just seems, it doesn't make sense to me logistically, but I feel like it's more like they wanted to bring up the clock tower.
See, I just took it as they're having the duel in the courtyard. The courtyard has the clock tower in it, and they're just making do with the space they have.
Yeah. I just couldn't picture it very well. So we jump back to Celaena, and like this hallucinations are just kind of beginning. And she knows Cain is kind of playing with her. He could easily have put his sword at her heart 1,000,000 times by now. And she says that she can hear otherworldly voices call her by a different name, a dangerous name. So we don't know what that means. Cain then slams her face first into a wall again. And again, I'm like, this circle has a lot of walls.
It's true, yeah.
It seems, and maybe it is the clock tower again. Maybe he's just slamming her face into the clock tower.
Ugh.
But I just feel like there shouldn't be so many walls in a duel. But I guess I don't duel very much, so maybe this is normal.
Yeah.
She literally sees dead people and is then pushed to the ground near where Chaol is standing. He kneels next to her and tells her to get up. But she kind of, at this point, she knows it's over. She's either going to die or go back to Endovir. And Celaena thinks of what, like, Cain impossibly knows. Like, how is it at all possible that he was able to know that about her parents? So it seems like it's true that she woke up between both of her parents after they were murdered. And that, like, he clearly knows maybe who they are. She thinks he does, at least. She obviously is kind of thinking that it's over. Like, this is the end of it. And she kind of cries a bit because she's also in a shit ton of pain, obviously, with the shoulder and the dislocated, one would assume something in her face would be screwed up as well, being slammed into a wall.
God, yeah. Like, I don't know how, if you're slammed into a wall, I don't know how she's conscious.
Exactly. Yeah. It doesn't make sense. Chaol and Celaena kind of like have a cute moment where they reach their hands towards each other on either side of the white line that she can't cross. And it's almost kind of like a two-way mirror moment. Like, you know, when somebody's got
puts their hand on the window and then you put your hand on the window, like, to match it.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just thinking of Bitten where he's behind the two-way mirror and he does it, and it's like one of those. She gets some strength from him and his little pep talk of get up, and she forces herself up, and Cain grabs her and slams her right back into the clock tower, and everything kind of goes dark, and like she can't see the sun anymore. And she realizes that the creatures she sees are real and kind of just beyond the veil. So this is the Bloodbane, like Sears used to use it, she said earlier. So like it seems like it actually does help you beyond the veil. She said most of the creatures have wings and are flying and are attacking her as they kind of fly by. And she somehow knows that the tower is like a portal for them. So the clock tower is a portal for these animal things. She does see Cain again for a bit. Like her vision clears of the hallucinations and she sees Cain and he goes to grab her neck, but where she sees it coming, she like snaps back to get out of the way. Mm-hmm. And he grabs her necklace instead and it like rips off of her neck and she's forced back into the darkness and seeing all the creatures.
Yeah. So while all this is happening, like she's having this battle with Cain. So again, like Dorian is noticing that something is wrong, but he also knows that like as soon as he says something, Celaena will lose. Like she'll be disqualified.
Mm-hmm.
And he sort of notices her like fighting at the air, and like Cain is sort of like smirking at it, like he's in on some secret. So Dorian starts to like, I guess the wheels start to turn in his mind that maybe she's fighting something that that he cannot see.
Mm-hmm.
And I just sort of want to be like, dude, duh. Like, she's not, I don't know. Like, I just want to be like, of course she's fighting something you can't see, dude. Like, what do you think is happening?
Yeah.
Um, so like she's fighting all those creatures that she can see that no one else can. And then everybody is watching her like fight the air. And Cain comes up and like just socks her one right in the face, like punches her.
Jesus.
And you just want to be like, I don't know. I just want to jump in at that point and be like, you can't do that.
Yeah.
But Dorian also sees that Nehemia comes over and starts drawing word marks in the air and is chanting something, which I also don't understand. Like, why? Like, magic is not allowed. So if someone is like drawing things in the air with like their hand or their finger and chanting some sort of like
Mm.
spell, you would think that she would get like tackled by the guards and be like, that's illegal. You can't do that. But they just
Yeah.
let her do it.
I think that it's more discreet than what you're thinking.
Oh, do you?
I do, yeah. But
Oh,
I think that Dorian just is paying attention.
oh. I literally thought she was doing it very overtly, like huge symbols in the air.
I feel like someone would have noticed and tackled her, like you said.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Um, so Dorian then notices that Celaena is just sort of lying on the ground, waiting for Cain to come and kill her. It sort of then jumps to her point of view, Celaena's, and like she's having this inner battle. Like she wants it to be over because she's having such a struggle, but she also doesn't want to give in. And she keeps repeating to herself, like, I will not be afraid. I will not be afraid, which harkens back to the beginning of the book when she said that that was something that she said to herself every day in Endovir, right? My name is, what did she say? My name is Celaena Sardothian and I will not be afraid.
Mm-hmm.
So she's repeating this again. So we've sort of come full circle in that. Like, this is her mantra, right?
Yeah.
Um, all of a sudden she lets out a scream for help, and I was trying to sort of capture what happened, but it says all of a sudden doors of all materials open: wood, iron, air, and magic, and they are all open. And I can't figure out if like, are they just like doors that have appeared out of nowhere, or are they the doors of the castle that are all opening? Like, obviously I know the air and magic ones are probably like just magical doors that have opened on their own, but like
Yeah.
the wooden and the iron ones, do you think those are like the doors of the castle?
That's hard. I can't imagine.
And then, like, is it from her screaming out for help, or is it the word marks that
Nehemia.
Nehemia
Yeah.
is doing that is causing all these doors to open?
Yeah.
These are
Maybe it's
questions that
a
are not
combo.
answered, people.
No, never answered. Maybe it's a combo.
Maybe.
Maybe we'll figure it out this read through.
Yeah. Um, so Elena, like the old queen, floats down awash in golden light. And Celaena sort of mentions that Cain has become a shadow. Like, I guess the way that I picture it is I picture it as Celaena with the bloodbane in her system. She can sort of, it's almost like she's put like these special 3D glasses on where she can see like the shadow world, is how I'm describing it.
Mm.
And so, like, with this vision, Cain is just a shadow, and it's only his eyes that make him like a visible figure.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like that's how I'm interpreting it. It's like almost like she put on glasses and she can see this like other shadow dimension.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess there was a bunch of like dead people, like spirits surrounding her and like creatures and everything like that. And Elena sort of like bursts through them with her like golden light and uses like a huge gust of magic wind to knock Cain away from her. And so
Kind of
then,
reminds me of Lord of the Rings when Aragorn has all of the ghosts.
yeah, all those like ghosty pirate dudes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Except all these like ghosty dead people are on the wrong side. Um, so the dead sort of charge at Elena, but she uses like her golden light erupting from her to make them stay away. I don't understand what everybody else is seeing at this point. Because obviously they're not seeing Elena, they're not seeing all the dead people, they're not seeing the creatures. So, like, are they just seeing wind whipping around? Or is it literally just Cain magically, like, nobody touched him and he just fell over? Like,
Well, he's very large. He gets unsteady sometimes.
But do you know what I mean? Like,
I do,
what
yeah.
is everyone else seeing? I understand
I
they
don't know.
can't see this dimension and stuff, but
Mm.
like, then what are they saying? Is it just is the wind whipping around so like nobody can really see what's happening? Is it foggy? Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
Anyway, um, a demon sort of starts charging Elena and like goes to attack her, and she uses a sword and kills it. And I just love Elena, like minus the fact that she's cryptic
Mm-hmm.
and needs to be more clear in her instructions. She's fierce queen, and
She is, yeah.
I stand a fierce queen.
Mm-hmm.
I do. I love her. I like that she's just like, I'm a spirit. I shouldn't need to get involved in this, but I am.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, we needed her in this, or
Mm.
Celaena would be dead.
Um, Something that I thought was interesting was she was wearing armor and a crown of stars, which I feel like is sort of maybe an East. I don't know if it's an Easter egg, but like, do we think that there's something to that? Maybe cross booking, even the whole crown of
Oh,
stars thing, right?
yeah.
The crown of stars is a mention for Akatar, one of the books in Akatar. Like, it's a prominent
Yes.
idea. So I wonder if this is maybe like, I don't know.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's a good thought. I was
Thank
like, I
you.
don't remember it coming up in any future books of this series, but
Yeah. I also just love that she all of a sudden, like, after she killed this random demon with her sword, she creates this big old barrier of light, like a big wall of light between them and the demons and Cain so that they could just have a chat. And again, I like, what is everybody seeing right now?
nothing. I guess Celaena's, is she still sitting on the ground? And then
Yes.
Cain is on his ass on the other side of the ring. I'm
Yeah.
just like, this is a very boring duel.
Yeah. Um, Elena says to Celaena that she cannot protect her, she cannot give her her strength, but she can draw the poison from her. Meanwhile, Cain keeps trying to get up, but he keeps getting slammed by wind in all directions,
So good.
which made me LOL. Uh, um, so I guess Elena heals Celaena of the poison and then picks up a piece of the staff that was left over and said that, you know, you're not going to be able to see me and you're not going to be able to see the demons like once I'm done healing you
Mm-hmm.
from the poison. So she said, do not be afraid. So again, sort of her mantra coming up again, I will not be afraid.
Mm-hmm.
Um I guess Cain sort of at this point looks over at the king, who gives him a nod, meaning he has the okay to kill Celaena. He manages to walk through the light barrier and shatters it and sort of says something a bit snarky to Elena at this point.
Of course.
Oh no. Elena uses sort of the last of her energy to blast a blue light from her hand, which tears the shadow Cain to ribbons, but leaves human Cain. So I don't know if this means that like it's gotten rid of like
his extra powers?
Yeah, like I wonder if all of his extra abilities are gone, or if this was just his like foray into dark magic and his like soul was getting darker. I don't know.
Yeah, it could be like he's no longer able to see, because like clearly he can see the flying creatures too. They're whispering at him things. So like, I don't know. Might be.
Yeah. So the poison had left Celaena's body. And as it faded away, she became aware of how much pain she was in, and like how she's literally got blood all over her body. So like I almost wonder if like maybe you should have left a little bit of that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden a weird blue mark starts shining from her forehead, which gives me sort of City of Bones vibes. At the end, remember she marks Simon with the cane. That's what I'm getting from it a little bit. But so she's got this blue word mark like shining from her forehead. And Cain is like surprised, and the king is also surprised. They're like, what the fuck is that? So I guess the poison is burned out of her body, and she stands like ready to do battle, and it's very epic, and like she's like, let's do this. And again, love Celaena. Like she's such a, I don't know, such a bad bitch. I love her.
She is. She's such a badass.
So Cain all of a sudden like swings his sword to behead her. And like, what happened to the no killing blows in this competition?
Well, he just got the okay from the king.
I know, but like, why is he getting the okay from the king? Why is the king being like, yeah, sure, you can kill her? I secretly know why. Like, I know that the king is just not a good person, and of course he's going to do whatever he can to win. But like, why is everybody else like? Theoretically, you would think everybody else would see that he tried to cut her head off and be like, hey, not allowed.
Well, they're not stopping this duel for anything, so they're not going to stop it for that. There's no refs.
No, that's true. Anyway, she ends up like rolling forward and stabs him right in the side where Chaol said he would be vulnerable. So like, way to go, Celaena. And then she slices one arm through muscle and sinew, and it's just like,
I don't think we needed to hear that.
No, but she talks about it. And then she does the same thing on the other arm. Anyway, she just got the best of it. It was very, I will say, it's sort of like anticlimactic, right? Like,
yeah.
She's having this like gigantic magic battle, and like, you know, Elena is got this big wall of light to protect her, and blah blah blah. And then after she helps her out, it's just like sort of a stab, done.
Yeah.
But anyway, so
makes you wonder what would have happened in the battle if she was fine the whole time.
Yes. So she sliced through both of his arms and had him stabbed in the right side. So he sort of runs toward her to attack her again, but sort of like trips on the ground, and she like puts her foot on his back, and she's like, if you don't stop moving, I'm gonna stab you again. So
fair.
Right? So like, she has won, right? According to the rules of the competition, she won.
Yeah.
So like, all the councilmen that all had champions, like that all picked people, they all start clapping. Not well. Like, it's like a slow clap, right?
Yeah.
But they're still clapping.
Yeah.
And so the king sort of begrudgingly, and we know he's not happy about it, announces that Celaena has won the duel. So she makes her way over to Dorian and Nehemia, and Nehemia all of a sudden collapses, and then Celaena collapses too. And it's just funny. Like, she goes over to the side of the ring with Dorian and Celaena, and then or with Dorian and Nehemia, and all of a sudden both of the women pass out.
Yeah.
So Dorian like calls out to his father to call for a healer, but his father is just like standing there, and like you can obviously tell that he's being a spoil sport and like being a negative Nelly. Like,
But also, you can't ask the king to call for a healer. Like, it seems like just tell someone else. Don't yell at the king to get a healer for you. Like, just, I don't know. I think that was in poor taste.
no, but
as
I also feel like it's more like, hey dad, you're the king, like everyone will listen to you. Order somebody to go get a freaking healer.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so the dad just sort of like the king just sort of stood there. Like, he obviously did not want her to win, so he's being a bit of a spoil sport about it. And as he was looking over, so he was looking over, there was like interaction between Caltaine and Parrington happening. So that's what Dorian was looking at. So as he looked there, his father gave Cain a look, and Cain comes on over to stab Celaena in the back while she's passed out. And Chaol saw this and sort of jumped in between them and stabbed Cain through the heart. So like, I don't know. It like, obviously the king is the king and he can do whatever the fuck he wants, but I feel like he's getting away with a lot here.
Yes.
Anyway, there was a lot of sort of like busyness after that because Chaol had just killed someone, and like Celaena and Nehemia just passed out, so like it's very busy. And Celaena sort of began mumbling to Dorian that she had saved her and had taken the poison out of her, but he had no idea who she was talking about or what she was talking about.
Fair.
While all this is happening, Dorian is also like secretly hating himself for not standing up to protect her and like not standing up to, fight for her.
Fight for the woman he loves.
I know. So he told himself that he would make sure she was freed and that he was done with the politics and the intrigue and that he loved her and no one would take her from him. To which I said, yikes. Like, they still have not chatted about how she feels about this whole arrangement.
But he's a prince. Who would say no?
So, yeah. So Dorian is, like, crushing real hard and sort of flips to Caltaine, which I thought was clever, going right from Dorian to Caltaine, because Caltaine is, like, doing everything she can for Dorian, like, to get Dorian. And he literally just decided that, like, there's no one else for me. I'm in love with Celaena. And I just thought that was a neat little like flip.
Yeah. And it's one that I feel like she does often, because like she did like the Dorian agonizing over Celaena, and then Celaena's point of view, Dorian's not even a part of her thoughts.
Yeah.
So I do think that it's like very good transitions that she does.
Yeah. So Caltaine is wondering how the poison didn't work. So then she starts questioning, like, did Parrington give her enough? Did he give her the right thing? So she goes up to them, to the Parrington and the king, and asking, like, why didn't this work? And she still had the vial of poison in her hand. And
she's
like
whispering to Parrington, though.
Maybe, but still, I just feel like doing this in public, in front of everybody, with all this commotion going on, is a terrible idea.
Oh, 100%.
Like, I gave her so much credit for being smart. This is not smart.
No.
So, of course, when she confronts them, they play dumb. And then they arrest her and say that it was her that poisoned Celaena. Like, oh, you poisoned her. That was all you. That was your idea.
Yeah, she's the fall guy.
Yes. Which is genius on their part, but also
100%.
Makes some
Yeah.
friggin' lying scumbags.
Yeah.
But like we sort of knew that anyway. um the next day, after everything went down, Dorian is sort of asking the king like what he plans to do with Chaol for killing Cain. Um so I guess the king says, I don't really see the point in getting rid of a perfectly good guard captain, so he's not planning on doing a darn thing.
Yeah.
Cain is dead, and that's that. Nobody's getting punished.
Mm.
He also sort of says to Dorian, like Celaena was kind of disappointing at that duel, so maybe I'll still send her back to Endovir. Like maybe I won't even offer her the contract. Um, and Dorian tries to argue with him that like she's awesome, and even though she's an assassin, she's not a monster or a criminal. So he's sort of being a bit of a dumbass and showing his cards there too. Like
100%.
he's showing that he has feelings for her to his father, the king. So now the king has leverage.
Yeah.
It's dumb. And of course the king sees, he's like, oh, I can tell that you're attached to her. And um all he's like, I'll send her a contract if or when I feel like it.
Yeah.
And Dorian sort of thinks like, he's like, well, I'm not an idiot. And he knows that Celaena choosing to use an Ilwe weapon to become the king's champion is somewhat symbolic. And we sort of talked about how
Hmm.
it would be, and turns out it is. It's a political move, and, symbolism abound.
Yes.
Um, we also sort of like spoke briefly throughout this book that there was a constant sort of idea from Parrington to kidnap Nehemia and use her as a hostage, to get Eelway to sort of behave and fall in line and let Aderlin conquer them.
Yeah.
But Dorian never liked that idea, and he manages to convince his father that it's a bad idea.
Yeah.
So there's our one little victory for this part of the book. So we switch to Celaena here. She's recovering in bed, but everything hurts, and she keeps having nightmares. And she believes that that's in part because she doesn't have Elena's amulet anymore.
Mm.
And of course, she hurts. Like, she just got thrown against brick walls like a bajillion times.
Face first.
Face first. So, yeah, I feel like obviously you're hurt. Like, come on. Let's.
Yeah.
Uh, so Nehemia comes into the room and she admits that she saved her yesterday and that she has gifts that allow her to see across the veil, which is what Celaena saw yesterday, and said that magic calls to magic, which is not really explained.
No.
She does say that she pretended not to speak the common tongue as a defense so that people would sort of let their guard down and like say what they wanted in front of her.
Hmm.
But also said that the reason she asked for the lessons is because she wanted a friend, not for any nefarious reason.
Hmm.
And then she also admits that she literally knows everything about word marks. Like all of her family know how to use them. They're passed down from like generation to generation, but she didn't really want to say anything because magic is outlawed in Rifthold and Aderlin.
Which is bullshit because she just bitched out Celaena for not trusting her. And now she's only now telling her exactly what's going on. Like her telling Nehemia that she is Celaena Sardathian is just as big as Nehemia saying, I know how to use word marks.
Yes. Anyway, I agree. It was a bit hypocritical.
Mm-hmm.
She also says that like she knew that Cain was summoning the demon, but he didn't know enough about summoning the demon to control it or send it back. So literally that's what she's been doing for months. So Cain will summon the demon, give it a victim, and then it will continue to like stroll through the castle. So she has to like find it and kill it or send it back through a portal.
Yeah.
Um, she says that she saved Celaena yesterday by opening a portal and asking Elena to come through and help, which is smart thinking on Nehemia's part.
Yeah. I think she said that she just asked anyone for help because she does say that she doesn't know who Elena is at this point.
Oh. So she also sort of admits that like she has no idea what word mark it is that Elena put on Celaena's head.
Mm.
So that's something. She also says that she technically came here as a spy for her country, and that she will do anything for them, but sort of saying like, "Don't worry, I'm not going to involve you. Like, I won't involve."
Mm-hmm.
She won't involve Celaena in her spy stuff, because she knows it's sort of like a conflict of interest, being that Celaena is technically the king's champion.
Yeah.
Celaena then sort of thanks her for saving her twice, but I feel like it was actually probably a lot more than twice.
Mm.
Like it's twice that we know of. So
Yeah. But she's been.
yesterday at the duel, and then healed her from the Ridderak bite at the beginning of this section. But yeah, like I feel like she probably saved her like several more times that she probably doesn't even know about.
Yeah.
Nehemia gives her the Elena's amulet back, saying that like one of her guards picked it up and found it outside. So that's nice. It makes Celaena says it makes her feel safer to have.
Mm-hmm.
Dorian, I guess, like comes to visit her the next day. She's still healing, and he is like racked with guilt because he didn't stop the fight and she was like getting injured, and the fact that Caltaine drugged her, he feels like he should have stopped it. And I just want her to be like, dude, chill.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I want her to do.
Yeah. She kind of like does a bit, not really, but she's like, this, it's not your job. Like,
Yeah.
why do you even care?
Yeah.
Like, what are you even talking about at one point? Like,
they do have like a cute little moment. But it's not what he wants it to be. Like I feel like he wants this like big sort of declaration of love thing, and there's just there's not.
No.
Meanwhile, the king and Parrington are sort of having a meeting, and the king mentions that he wants to send Dorian to the front lines, like mold him into a man. So I don't think Dorian will be here for that, but what odds?
Yeah.
I don't think he'll agree. But anyway,
No.
especially now that he's like, I've found my one true love and I'm never letting her go.
Yeah.
So he also like says like, I don't know if I should trust Celaena, but he also knows that he sort of doesn't really have another option right now. Like if he wants a champion, she's sort of it.
Mm-hmm.
So, he's sort of like, I don't want her to do the job, but I sort of don't have anyone else to do the job.
Yeah.
He also admits to knowing all about word marks, except, again, for the one on Celaena's head. He also knows that somebody across the veil saved her at the duel. But again, he couldn't see who it was, so he doesn't know who it is. And like that would freak me out. Like if I was a bad person and I knew somebody saved like my enemy, I would be freaking out because I'd be like, who the hell is it?
Well,
Like,
yeah. But then it would kind of make me think maybe that like I should trust them because they have the favor of somebody across the veil. Like she's not his enemy yet. He just didn't want her to win. She's just like,
no, you're right.
Yes, she was a terror in the town, killing people, but like that's what you want in your assassin anyway. So yeah.
So he also admits to knowing about Parrington manipulating Caltaine, seems like the king essentially knows everything.
Mm.
And it just sort of cements our belief that he's probably the bad guy.
Yeah.
But he sort of says, like, I know about you, the Parrington manipulating Caltaine, saying, and then they sort of get cryptic and say that the power worked well, manipulating her mind and emotions, just like they changed Kane, but they sort of eased off of her because she was complaining about the headaches.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously that means that they had something to do with her headaches.
Yeah.
And again, this is something that gets resolved later on.
Mm-hmm.
They also sort of say, because that's where she is right now, she's sitting in the dungeon. She's been charged with
Attempted murder, I
attempted
guess.
murder, yeah, from poisoning Celaena. So she's in the dungeon right now, and they said that, as soon as all the talk dies down, they'll get her out of the dungeon with an offer, and that they're going to use her, but for what, we don't know.
Yeah.
He also tells the Duke to stop pushing the agenda for using Nehemia, and says it's sort of drawing suspicion. So we sort of thought that that was Duke Parrington's plan, and he hadn't yet told the king. But again, turns out the king knows everything.
Mm-hmm. But it does show that he's keeping his word to Dorian, because he did tell Dorian that he would like back off on that plan. So like,
Yeah,
that is good.
yeah,
Question mark.
goodish.
Yeah.
So after all this, we have a little time jump, and it's like a week after the duel. So Celaena is like, she's doing better. She's not at 100%, but she's doing okay. And Dorian is reading to her to pass the time, which is adorable.
Mm-hmm.
And she keeps having these strange dreams with word marks and like dead armies, which again, we don't really get an answer to what they are for this book. KL sort of then comes to visit, and he says that he's sorry he waited so long to visit. Like, he hasn't come to visit her once yet in that whole week.
Mm.
And Celaena is like, just thanks him, saying, thank you for saving my life. Twice, I guess, at the duel. Once when he killed Kane, and then again when he sort of bent down and gave her that little pep talk.
Mm.
And they sort of have a little nice moment. He heard Kane talk about her parents. So he says he's sorry about what happens to her parents. And she sort of admits something, that the night that they died, she went into their room and fell asleep between them. She said the bed was wet and she thought it was rain because I guess the window was open or the balcony door was open. And then she woke up the next morning to find it was blood, and she was covered in it, which like literally makes me want to vomit. It sounds
Mm-hmm.
one of the absolute most horrifying things that can ever happen to a human.
Yeah. And she's like
Emotional things.
8.
And she's 8. Yeah. It just
Yeah.
blows my, like, I just can't even.
Mm-hmm.
They hug, and it's a moment. Like, it's
Well,
just
yeah.
a hug, but it is a hug. Like, it's
Yeah.
a very affectionate hug. Dorian sort of finds them and comes upon them, and Kale like completely runs away. He doesn't want to get in between Dorian and anything that's happening with Celaena. So he obviously like has a thing for her. Like, he obviously has feelings for her, but he's
Mm-hmm.
holding it all back for Dorian's sake, which is like, I find it's good and bad at the same time. Like, I like that he's being thoughtful
Mm-hmm.
and like thinking of his best friend, but at the same time, like, nobody is talking to her about what she wants.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
maybe she would rather have Kale. Maybe she wants neither. Like, before you go making decisions about who gets to have her or anything like that, like, friggin' talk to her first.
Exactly.
Anyway, Dorian has good news. he says, you're officially signing the contract tomorrow to be the king's assassin. And he sort of goes to kiss her and she sort of stops him and then breaks up with him.
Yeah.
Not at all what he was expecting, I don't think.
No.
And she sort of says, like, you're a prince, and that alone has complications considering, like, who she is.
Mm-hmm.
And she said that after serving as the king's assassin for 4 years, she's gone. She's like, I've never been free in my life. Like, she was a child, then she was bound to the king of assassins. Then she was an Endovier. Now she works for the king. Like, she's literally never been free. So she really, truly just wants to be free. So she don't want no man, and she doesn't want to be tied down to one place, which is sort of what would happen in a relationship with him.
Yeah,
So,
he's the prince. He can't leave.
yeah, he's tied to his kingdom. So she breaks up with him. And again, like, we were saying this whole time, that no one sort of knew what she wanted. This is what she wanted, and no one talked about it. He got really all up in his feelings, only for her to break up with him.
Yeah.
It's
his own fault for not talking to her about it.
Yes, it is. We get sort of tucked into Chaol's mind now. And he's really having a hard time struggling over killing Cain. He goes to talk to Dorian about it, but he can't find him. He sort of assumes that, he must be in Celaena's room. So he goes to see if he's there, and she's like, no, sorry, I ended it with him. And that made him happy. So, like, obviously, again, we know he has feelings for her, but the fact that her dumping his best friend made him happy, I feel like is like, dude, just like talk to her, tell her how you feel.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he sits and he eats dinner with her. That night, Celaena goes to bed and she dreams she was in Elena's tomb speaking with her. So I feel like this is sort of like an astral projection sort of a scenario. Like, it really happened, but it was just her mind. It wasn't her body that was in the tomb.
Yeah.
And Elena sort of says to her, like, you could be so much more if you let yourself. You could rattle the stars. Which, again, harkens to ACOTAR for me a little bit. Right? The whole rattling the stars thing?
Yeah. Agreed.
But she also says that right now, she is exactly where she needs to be to help people in need. And Elena said, like, I'll keep watching over you. And again, it's sort of a little bit cryptic. Like, I wish that she would just come out and say it, but I understand why she doesn't. It's, plot, people. If she just laid it all out there, then we would have no book.
It's true.
The next day, she goes to the king to sign the contract. He is not happy about it, but he gives it to her anyway. Sort of says, like, you are not allowed to ask questions. Like, you just have to do what I tell you to. And then he also says, if you fail a mission, he will kill her, which is like, I mean, I feel like she's been threatened death so many times, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
But he says, if you don't come back from a mission, because I guess that's sort of a worry, right? Is that she'll go on a mission and not come back.
Yeah.
So he's like, if you don't come back from a mission, I'll kill Chaol, then I'll kill Nehemia, then I'll kill Nehemia's family, like her brothers and her mother. And so essentially, like, one mistake and all the people she cares about will die.
Yeah.
So, really great ruler here. But she signs the contract anyway, and she leaves the throne room with Chaol. And he sort of asks her, and this is sort of our ending moment. He asks her, like, are you happy? And she says, yeah, like, I'm as happy as I can be right now. And that's the end of the whole book. So we've left off with Celaena signing 4 years of her life away, and still a lot of like balls in the air, like, and
Yes.
a lot of unanswered questions still.
Yeah.
But there's 5 more books. Well, plus the anthology of short stories. So
Yeah.
a lot still to happen.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, what do you think? I know this is one of your favorite series.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed this book. I obviously do like some of the later books more, but this is definitely, I thought, a strong start for the series and really got you into the character. Um, so yeah, I'm a big fan of it. How about you?
Yeah, I agree. Like it is a bit mild in terms of what we now know for Sarah J. Maas.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like it's a bit tame. Um but it does definitely develop, and I think it's actually a good gripping book. It it's funny because it is so, I find it's so like almost standalone in terms of plot and consequence. Like you never think that what's going to happen happens,
Yeah.
right? You're like, I remember reading this book and I remember getting to the end of my first read through. Like
Yeah.
we've pointed out a lot of Easter eggs and a lot of like, oh, this is a question that doesn't get answered. We've sort of highlighted a bunch of that. When I first read this book, I didn't get any of that.
No, of course not.
So I remember finishing it and sort of being like, well, geez, what's the next book going to be about?
Yeah.
Right? Because I felt
Other than
like,
like the next 4 years of her life.
yeah, it just felt
Like,
like very tied up to me.
yes.
So I really enjoy how twisted it gets. Like you literally cannot predict what is going to happen to this poor girl.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I like it.
Same. Awesome.
So yeah, so that wraps it up for this week. Um, if you want to get in touch with us and share your thoughts on anything you heard in our episodes, or if you have any book suggestions, please email us at coffeeandcoread@gmail.com. And be sure to check us out on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Coffee and Co Read.
So our new book for next month is going to be Vampire Academy.
Woo!
So that is by Rochelle Mead. And like we said earlier, there's apparently a show coming out on September the 15th. I think it's coming out on Peacock in the States. But I know sometimes in Canada, we'll get that on Stack TV afterwards. So that's my hope.
Mm-hmm. Fingers
like
crossed. If not, we might have to like try and get someone from the States to like just screen share with us while we
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and there was also a movie for that series, one movie.
We've spoken about the movie before and how much you loved it because it started sort of your journey with the series.
Exactly.
So we're quite excited.
I'm very excited.
Yeah. We're quite excited about this series. Hopefully they do a great job, better than the movie.
Yes. So we're going to be reading chapters 1 to 6. So make sure to grab a copy and follow along. And if you're enjoying our chats, don't forget to follow, rate, and review wherever you find our content. Thanks for listening, everybody, and we'll see you on the next page.